Okay, so welcome everybody to Enhancing the Accountant Bookkeeper Connection series featuring my friend and my accountant, Jonathan Carter. Hello. Oh, I need to update my picture. So yes, purple hair and face is a little thinner now. But anyway, so I am Tanya Hilt, CPB and AIA, and I'm here because I'm very passionate about collaboration. And that's why Jonathan is here as well too. So you can find me at Tanya's Bootcamp, Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And I've just actually secured, and I don't know why it took me that long, secured those domain names as well at tanyasbootcamp.co.com and .ca.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So a little bit about myself. I led my team to Intuit's Global Firm of the Future for 2018, which was the final as well. So I like to say that we broke the contest. And we are reigning champs for that. Named as Insightful Accountant Top 100 Pro Advisor 2018 through 2022, and Top Canadian Pro Advisor for 2020. I'm the founder of Cloud Business Services and Tanya's Bookkeepers Bootcamp. I have my level 5 certified advisor designation through Mentor Plus, which is where I also earned my AIA, which is Accredited Impactful Advisor. And I am a member of the Intuit Trainer Writer Network. And going along with the theme, which we'll find out when we get in and Jonathan takes over, I kind of thought this was a great quote to bring out. The best way to predict the future is to create it. And that was by Peter Drucker. And he is a business coach and a business owner and a serial entrepreneur, lots of stuff, author, lots of stuff to him. But yeah, so there's a little bit of a foreshadowing of what our topic is today. So this webinar does qualify for CPD credits through CPB Canada. There will be 2 polls that both must be answered in order to qualify, and the recording of the webinar and your CPD credits will be emailed generally within 2 days, should be by the end of the weekend. So if you don't have it, reach out because I'll have that done. So very important, in order to receive the recording and the credits, that is sent through Flowdesk, which is basically what we use. It's our version of MailChimp. And if you have ever hit unsubscribe, you will not receive those. So you need to reach back out to us and resubscribe you to that, or you can just resubscribe through the website, bookkeepersbootcamp.ca. And that's if you don't have it by this weekend, you probably hit unsubscribe. Maybe not meaning to hit unsubscribe for us, but if you have, that's the only way you're going to get it. And what is it? I will now introduce, again, my friend, my accountant, Jonathan Carter. We have been collaborating with Jonathan and his team for many, many years. We have multiple mutual clients together. And as a matter of fact, when it comes down to referring accountants, he's actually the very first one on the list that we refer to. Again, we work very well with the team. I know he's working in QBO, so those little things that accountants might do that drive you crazy, like just send back a journal entry to, do a debit or credit to the AP or the AR. And you're like, no, I need to know which one. Jonathan's team handles all that and he knows QBO. So we have zero issues with any of that. I have learned so much from Jonathan, and I definitely credit the quality of our books, which I have gotten compliments from many accountants I work with, is all due to Jonathan and his collaboration. Very, very good attending to detail and outstanding customer service. So after that great big lead up, I am going to stop sharing and let you take it away, Jonathan.
Well, I'd like to say, collaboration helps me too. Like Tanya and I we've been friends and we've been working together for several years. And a lot of not just the feedback, but understanding the different perspectives and just quality control. I think both of us have gotten better by working together.
Well, and this is where, and again, we don't have any egos in the room when we talk either, right?
Yes.
And this is exactly why we do this series, because we both believe so strongly in collaboration, because you just heard it from both of us. It's made both of us better understand the other side of things. So collaborate, find that accountant, collaborate. And if you don't have one, Jonathan, go to Jonathan. Anyway.
Tanya, would you mind enabling participant screen sharing?
Yes. Please? It's enabled in the back end, but it still doesn't see that it's enabled in the back end. Sure. And I have to actually talk to Zoom about that. So yes, you should be able to screen share now.
Awesome. And once we get going, I'd be very happy if people would come in and join and just kind of feel free to talk about things,
Okay.
because this is an area where other people may have experience that I don't have. So today we're talking about future businesses, who they are and what they're doing. And I mean, as I think any bookkeeper who works with a future looking business, the answer is they do whatever they want. And then we have to quite often pick up the pieces. So really a portion of this is to discuss those kind of issues and how we can help point our clients in the right direction and ensure that we do have,
Sorry,
appropriate bookkeeping in place.
just before you move on, what I'm going to, because you would like for people to get interactive, I'm going to go in
Please.
and promote everybody to panelists. It is up to you whether you wish to come in or not. You can come in, leave your camera on, leave your camera off. It is completely up to you. You can not accept. If there is something that you do decide that you want to, and you did not accept that initial promote to panelist, just put the note in chat or raise your hand, flag me somehow, and I'll make sure to bring you in. Sorry, go ahead, Jonathan.
No worries, no worries. So I am Jonathan Carter, as the founder of CATA Accounting Solutions Professional Corporation. I was a member of the inaugural Intuit Accountants Council in Canada, and I have had a long-standing relationship with Intuit. I do really appreciate the fact that we can go back and forth and help things get better. I know as users, sometimes it's frustrating, it doesn't happen immediately, but this is a gigantic ship that needs to be steered, and it steers slowly. So sometimes, we have to be patient for our feedback to actually show up in product. I was a recipient of the 2018 Inspire Accountant Award. We're Elite Pro Advisors. I am QBO Advanced Certified, as well as another team member. Everybody here at CATA has to be QBO Basic Certified. Even our lovely marketing coordinator, Julia, who doesn't do any bookkeeping besides her own, she has to get QBO Basic Certified. I was grateful to be part of the Insightful Accountant Top 100 list for 2021 and 2022. I work with a lot of cloud bookkeeping firms, and I really like working with cloud bookkeeping firms. I really like working with qualified bookkeepers because it's just easy. It's easy to work together. We get better quality files. The back and forth is less, there's less animosity there, and we can really collaborate for the best outcomes for the clients and for ourselves, because we're stakeholders too. I'm often considered a thought leader in technology and accounting, and I love working with technology companies, though I will be very picky about the entrepreneur I decide to work with. So the agenda for today is, what are businesses of the future? What do they do? How are they different? And what should we do to prepare? And then some summary and some questions. There is something that's a little bit interesting about this presentation that I'll talk about right at the end, and I'll talk about a gap right at the end. And I hope that creates some interesting stimulation. So poll question number 1, what is not, that's not terribly great English. What is not considered a business of the future? A restaurant, a digital miner, an artist producing NFTs, a consulting engineer, or all might be considered a business of the future?
Hang on, I just have to end the poll and restart it again. So because anybody who I promoted as a panelist cannot vote. So I'm very sorry. So hang on, let me just end the poll and allow panelists to participate and relaunch. Okay, so when I relaunch, it will clear the existing poll results. I'm warning you that. So please, if you did answer, please answer again, because everybody can answer.
I'm gonna just stop sharing. So actually, I'll move the poll. Can't see what I answer.
You and I don't matter. We don't get CPD credits for it. When you present, we don't get the credits. So okay, so we've got, let's see, we'll give it a 5-second countdown. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, end the poll, and let's share the results. All might be. That would be my guess too.
I would agree with that, especially considering I had my food delivered by a robot not that long ago. Well, actually, it was the tea was delivered by a robot.
Seriously?
Yeah, seriously.
Was it one of those Amazon delivery things that came in and dropped off? Or like
No, it was a restaurant called Kanji Queen in Mississauga. They're a chain. There's a few of them, but this is the first time where I've had a robot come up to the table and with a whole bunch of
Oh, it was
teapots.
actually sitting. You know what? I actually saw that in an X-Files episode when I'm not sure if you guys, whoever watches the X-Files out there, but it was one of the ones when they came back and did the reboot. It was 100% 0-person run restaurant. And I'm like, no, that we're way far off of that, but that's crazy.
There are quite a few different technologies coming through to restaurants. I mean, we've all seen what's going on with self-checkout lines and just trying to eliminate the need for humans. It's not a great thing for the job market, but I mean, of course, the businesses are going to make more profit as long as the robots can, deal with the ornery customer or so on. So
I think what we should probably take a look at is work with maybe those clients or those businesses, because somebody is going to need to manage the robots. So I
mhm.
think if we're really smart and we're working with businesses that actually care about everything, not just profit, it's how can you then change the jobs instead of lay people off to replace jobs? It's how can you change what they do to make the restaurant more efficient and whatnot.
Yeah,
My
I
thoughts.
mean, unfortunately, that does create a situation of what they call frictional unemployment. So that's when, like, say, I need a computer programmer. I currently have a cashier. So the cashier gets laid off and she's subject to frictional
Oh,
employment
yeah.
while somebody with the appropriate skill set is hired. And I think we're seeing a lot of that right now. And I think we're going to continue to see that as things go forward. So just a quick thing. Business of the future can be from anywhere. They can be anything. I've learned a lot of really cool things from people who are similar, consulting engineers, other professionals, particularly in the bookkeeping and accounting realm. We've seen this community seems to be really engrossed in how can I find tools that save me time at a reasonable cost. So business of the future embrace technology and innovation. They stay up to date with technology advancements and best practices, and they do things differently. So let's have a quick discussion here. There's the benefits and there's the risks of these kind of situations. So I think one of the big risks we all saw was the legislative catch up from the Wayfair decision in 2018, right? And the sales tax situation. So the rules had been one thing, and then all of a sudden they change. And now we've got to be looking at other things. We've got to expand our base of knowledge. So that's definitely a risk. Has anybody else encountered another risk that they'd like to talk about, or maybe an experience of something? Well, my client went off the reservation and did this, and we had no idea what to do. This is how we did it. Does anybody have any stories they want to share about that?
Well,
Yeah,
share
go ahead.
while people are waiting. I'm thinking I'll share. We had one client through COVID, and what they did is they had a traditional thrift store type thing. And then she was all in panic. And so she moved to sell some of them online during COVID when things were shut down. But when they started opening up, she's like, Tanya, I'm going to be spending so much time rewashing the clothes and doing all of this. And so we sat down and we put our heads together and we completely redesigned her business, and she turned it into a celebrity type shopping experience where now she would have parties of people. They would let her know ahead of time what she was looking for, because she would go to antique sales and whatnot, and she would do that type of customized shopping for clients. But she was also very well known, and so they would come in and now they would sit on the couch. Nobody was, raking through the clothes because she would hold them and they would only try on certain things. So that brought that down, and it actually increased her profit margin, because by offering, the little, hors d'oeuvres and mimosas and this extra experience, people were really craving for something like that to be able to get out, but get out still in a COVID safe environment at that time. And that ended up becoming her new business model. And she's kind of gone back to a little bit of traditional mixed with that still in there. So she will still close the store down for you for those type of parties. And so that's just one example of how when there's a disruption like that, you can make a change to stay relevant.
Excellent. Yeah, I know that experiences are what people are craving a lot of the time. I mean, if people want a thing, a good, they can get it from anywhere. If they want a transactional service, they can get it from anywhere. And I think that's one thing that we as bookkeepers and accountants need to do, is to provide an experience that the client really embraces and really enjoys. It's interesting to hear about that in a thrift store model, though. Like that's amazing. And yes, definitely important to increase margins when you're providing that level of service. And you know what? Thrift is not necessarily like I put thrift with cheap, but I think like from that model, it's more like vintage,
Yes, and
whereas
you're right, and
vintage
it's
is
probably more
expensive,
vintage.
right?
And you
So,
know what? You're absolutely right that's a lot more of what she enjoys to do,
yeah,
is have vintage and have high end stuff. So she would go searching for that rather than Value Village type thrift. So
yeah.
yeah, and that was something that just kind of started to change naturally over time, and that's where she started to get the reputation where, yeah, you might be able to go in there and find a vintage Gucci bag or something, because she would look
Huh?
for these, and she would go to the auctions, and she would go to the estate sales, and the estate auctions is where she actually picked up a lot of this stuff from. And it was our conversation of that, which, and bouncing ideas back and forth, and neither one of us would have come up with that on our own. So it just came up with, okay, let's try to figure out how to keep you alive and how to do changes, like through having your store shut down, and reopening and keeping her costs down. And
Yeah. Does anybody else have any experiences they want to share? I'll just get one more then from the tax side of things, and that is a client going ahead and doing something without speaking about to anybody about tax consequences. So we did recently have a file that I'm still unraveling. I think part of it is going to be a voluntary disclosure. And sorry, I just noticed, and it's bugging me. Tanya, the red light isn't on in the corner of my screen. Are we recording?
yes, we are.
Okay, cool, cool.
It's flashing to
Um,
me. It says we are. So
okay, good, good. I just want to make sure. So in this situation, the customer went, "Oh, I opened an e-commerce store. It turned out to be successful. We sold $350,000. What do you mean we need to register for HST?" So that's one that's going to be unraveled, and there's definitely a hidden tax liability there. And it would be really nice, and I think part of our component, especially on the social media marketing side of things, is to continue to educate customers, to show that value of speaking to a bookkeeper, of speaking to an accountant, and getting those little things sorted out before
well,
they become a big thing.
and not just that, now that their e-commerce was any of that into the States, where now you're looking at Nexus, right? So,
Yeah,
and this is where, those big conversations come in. And I actually have a link to, and I happen to know, and I tell everybody $50,000 or more in any one state, we need to know, because every state is different. Some of it is, there's no threshold, but there's no threshold because there's no tax. So we don't have to worry about that. But as soon as you hit 50,000, I think there's one state that had something at 50,000, but they're starting to get to be a big deal that you need to start. They need to be on your radar. But so many people do that because they're shipping online. They're like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Or they're
yeah,
still charging GST to those in the States and not understanding the place of supply rule.
yeah.
We had just
They're
this morning benefits. It was as simple as that. He's a support client. We have told them time and time and time again, do not do anything without talking to us. We send them the little T4. We're getting ready to do T4s. And oh, by the way, halfway through the year, I decided to add on that I'm paying for one of my employees only. I'm now paying health premiums. Oh, great. So now we need to go in, and to be properly compliant, we now need to go in, figure out what that is, and go in and do taxable benefits on every single paycheck from that time forward, like not just add it to the T4. So yeah, people, they don't understand that. And you're absolutely right that those ongoing discussions and education and why they need us are so vital.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There'll be lots of times to share, but let's just keep things moving. So I'm sure everybody, well, I'm not sure, but I'm sure people are aware that I've given a couple presentations on blockchain-based industries. This is an area where I don't think it's going away despite the drop in crypto. I think we're just in a lull time and it's going to come back. And I think it's a lot more interesting than just cryptocurrency. So that's something that to keep in mind. One thing you're going to see probably in the near future is customers starting to accept payment in various cryptocurrencies. And that creates a whole other element to bookkeeping that can be extremely challenging. And it's very important because remember the onus for, I think this is a mostly Canadian audience, that the onus is on the taxpayer to keep good books and records. That is part of the law. So that absolutely must be done. Robotics and advanced manufacturing. Kim, I saw your note about the sushi place. I think it was a similar robot that delivered my tea. It definitely had a little face like a cat on the top, but it more looked like a, for lack of a better term, a moving trash can. It wasn't very boxy and plain, but it did have this cute little graphic cat face when it brought the tea, and even had a little message, you know, your tea is here, kind of thing. So that was neat. But we're going to see things like advanced manufacturing. There could be special tax credits associated with these kinds of investments, these capital investments. So it's important to coordinate with the accountant to make sure that you're not putting like, you know, bulldozers and advanced manufacturing equipment in the same fixed asset class. Those kind of things could happen. And of course, if they're developing things, there could be the opportunity for SHRED, the scientific research and experimental development tax credit. Software development, cloud computing, AI, machine learning companies. I mean, we all work with cloud-based accounting software. At a minimum, they're using machine learning. They are intaking metadata to try and develop those AI algorithms. Don't know how far along the processes are, but based on the suggestions that I get, I would say they're not very far along in deployment, but that might still be happening in the back, and we just don't know it. E-commerce, that's always an interesting one. Hey, there's this new platform, you know, Toys Online that we started selling through. Oh, you need reports, you need to know where we're selling. Oh, we don't have that information. So again, this kind of reinforces, you know, making sure your clients feel comfortable coming to you. Online subscription and freemium business models. Just curious, who here is using a subscription model for their bookkeeping? So just a handful of us. Okay.
It's a hybrid.
So that's, yeah, you know, I have to say we're hybrid as well. We don't do a fixed fee or subscription for any kind of cleanup work. And we do allow our subscriptions to float. And that was a result of discussion with you, Tanya. Oh, you add an employee, that'll be an extra a month, you know?
Yep.
Like that. And then sustainability and clean tech, these are going to become more and more apparent, more involved. There's definitely going to be SHRED opportunities here, 100%. There's definitely going to be specific asset classes and tax incentives to investing in these kind of things. Has anybody experienced this already with a customer who perhaps, you know, has some kind of clean tech in their business and then having to deal with a special tax treatment, anything like that? Okay. Does anybody have any?
Not yet, but we're seeing an awful lot of crowdfunding. What do you call it? Crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding. Yeah, there's a good one. Kickstarter. What's the other GoFundMe?
There's there's a multiplicity of platforms out there. Patreon, Neon. There's some brand new ones just for journalists. It goes on.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And then there's this misconception amongst the general public. Well, I got, you know, tips on Twitch. That doesn't count as income. That's just a tip. No, that's still income. You still have to declare
income.
that income.
It's income.
Yeah.
We see a lot of that.
Yeah. Any other examples? Anything that people have seen or people have heard of that's kind of coming along that might be something different? All right, let's keep going. So blockchain businesses. Oh, my slide is off center here. We talked about, I've done this presentation. I'm not going to get deep into it, but there's cryptocurrency trading, NFT minting, distribution and resale, digital mining, smart contracts, supply chain management, and who knows what's next. To tell just a couple quick analogies, when I was in San Jose for QB Connect, when it was in San Jose, I had just the random fortune of sitting next to an airport bar with a guy who was using blockchain in his business. He wasn't the head of the business, but they're using it to track the flow of lettuce from when it was planted in what acre it was planted to what store it went to and when it was sold. And there's agriculture in particular is really starting to embrace Internet of Things. So like you could have data on a specific acre of farmland. And it's like, okay, this acre needs more nitrogen. This acre needs more phosphorus. This acre needs to be rotated out for a season to allow it to rejuvenate a bit. And these kind of things are taking place at all over the place in agriculture. One of the things that's really neat, but I've seen the price tags on them, and I can't imagine how a small farmer would afford it, is the use of self-driving and self-planting, self-processing, and these kind of things by John Deere. So like they can know exactly like the nutrition levels, the water levels, what type of seed went in there, from what batch of seed that came from. And it's really fascinating what they're doing. And this is all IoT on blockchain. Has anybody had any experience besides Rod? We've heard about Rod, create trading in crypto. Has anybody else had experience or had a customer come to them and say, hey, so I decided I was going to do this last year, and this is the first time we're talking about it. Has anybody had any of that happen? Okay. Well, I think the one that people are going to see very commonly is the cryptocurrency trading. And from that, you can get exchange records. Most exchanges, like good exchanges, are quite comprehensive in their records, but there can be a very manual process of translating everything into Canadian dollars. And keep in mind, every time that cryptocurrency moves, and like if it goes from Bitcoin to Ethereum, that's a taxable transaction. So all these gains and losses have to be recognized all along the way. And anytime it moves, if it stays in a currency but moves one wallet to another, there can be fees. Those need to be recognized. So there are some useful tools. They're on the blockchain bookkeeping presentation. If you'd like to check that out, I believe it's on YouTube. I think they're in that presentation. If they're not, feel free to reach out. Matthew May from Acuity in the US is definitely one of the leaders I follow in this realm. He's got great LinkedIn and blog posts and stuff like that. And yeah, I keep watching what he's doing and learning from him. And that's been very helpful. Tanya, it looks like you wanted to chime in with something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that really it's at its basic, it is no different than trading in the stock market. Because I was very overwhelmed when Rod first came and said he was starting to do this. And I had a lot to say on, where, what platform he uses in the wallets and whatnot, because I said, I need to see these records. You give me sample records. But when it all boils down to it, it's really like trading. You're trading in foreign exchange. The good wallets or the good platforms will be able to say, here's your exchange rate, to be able to bring it into whether US or Canadian or whatnot, your fees. So just think of it like somebody who's doing a lot of trading on the stock market. All of that information needs to be in there. And when you look at it and start to understand it, that's really at its basics, kind of what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not rocket science, but it's intimidating to look at these reports because sometimes they're ridiculously massive.
Yeah, and a lot of them probably has to do with the exchange number or
the hash,
the transaction number, the hash. That's it. Yeah, the transaction number and all of this stuff. But that's what it was. It was very intimidating for me until I actually started breaking it down and looking at it. I'm like, oh, just like stock trading. Okay, I got it. And so that's But you're right. It's very intimidating. And if you're on a wrong platform, goodness knows what they're getting. So.
Yeah, well, that brings me to actually kind of two commentary, because there were when I first wrote the blockchain bookkeeping presentation, there were over 20,000 cryptocurrencies out there, and during the crash last year, many have gone to zero. So one of the questions I get a lot is, why do they have value? And the answer is because people think they have value. That's why there's so much volatility in these markets. And the other thing I was going to say is the biggest risk of dealing with any future looking business is the entrepreneur, is the person you're working with. Are they above board? Are they ethical? Are they trying to do things right? At least, are they organized enough that they're not going to make your life a nightmare? These are questions you need to be asking yourself before accepting any client. I got to present this on Friday at the ATAP Refresh 2023 conference. And afterwards, I got some interesting questions. And my biggest question to the one person who asked was, what is your client doing? What is their actual business? Because they were dealing with another country in the Golden Triangle. And I mean, that could be absolutely legit. It could be computer programming for drug cartels. Who knows? But I think that, like, as a professional, you need to protect your reputation and you need to make sure things are in order. Just ask the former auditors of FTX. So robotics and advanced manufacturing, we talked a bit about IoT and agriculture. Obviously, this is something that has me a little excited. Robotics in restaurants, we talked about that a little bit as well. One thing that has been in Japan and Korea for a very long time, and I have only seen it a handful of times in Canada, is the conveyor belt style restaurant, where the food comes out in small plates on a conveyor belt, you take it off, and they add up your plates at the end and you pay your bill. So it really reduces the amount of labor costs with regards to servers, but it also increases the requirement to understand demand. So you're not producing a bunch of a dish that never gets eaten, things like that. And there are some interesting opportunities, I think, there for bookkeepers and financial professionals to interact in those realms. It's not going to just be restaurants. We've seen that Amazon has a self-serve store where there's no cashiers, no security, right? Everything is done by RFID. We may see more of that happening in retail settings if that goes wide. And then there could be special bookkeeping. We talked about consulting with the tax professional, if you're not already the tax professional, about the class of asset. And talking about the robotics and the conveyor belt sushi or different things like that, there's a lot of possible support work available. So like a client who used to be like, okay, we're just going to look backwards and we're going to just do our bookkeeping, and we'll know how we did last year, like 3 months into the next year or the month into the next year. We don't really care about that. I think that's going to shift as companies become more advanced and more sophisticated. They're going to want to look forward. They're going to look for help with decision making. It's like, should we buy this robot? Should we buy this clean tech? Should we buy this advanced manufacturing line? Should we invest in IoT for our farm? Those are going to be questions that I think are going to be very interesting in the future. Has anyone encountered anyone using advanced manufacturing, robotics, any IoT, things like that? So I guarantee you have, because if you have QBO or Xero app on your phone, you're using IoT already, right? We have the mileage trackers. One of our early clients was doing GPS tracking systems before they were really widely available. So these kind of things are going to become more and more of an everyday thing. So software. Traditional software development for specialized situations. How do you tell that robot what it needs to deliver? How does it know where to go? How does it not run over a child? Self-driving cars, it's going to be an interesting one. I mean, from a statistical standpoint, they're already safer than human drivers, yet we still think they're dangerous. So it's going to be an interesting thing. And of course, the advancement of no-code programming. There are a couple of firms out there who actually have coding divisions. They actually have IT divisions that will help their customer develop this kind of interactive software, A talking to B, to make sure that things are done properly. Has anybody used any of this or anybody encountered any of this? I bet you have, or some of you have. How about Zapier? Anybody using Zapier? No? So these kind of little things that allow one to talk to the other. I mean, we're all probably using cloud-based ecosystems where you might have an OCR tech like HubDoc or Dext going into the software. So it's two different things speaking together. Using IoT, Internet of Things, to capture the receipt in the OCR tech and then translating that into the bookkeeping software. These are kind of things that we might be using and not even realizing it. The bookkeeping is extremely important when it comes to any kind of software development. So that's something to keep in mind, because there can be some hidden shred there, and it is possible. Amount of claim, and I think I froze, so I'm just going to pause for a moment. Hi, did I freeze? Okay, I think I'm back. I froze for a bit there. Okay, all right. So I'm not sure where I left it, but bookkeeping is vital to the tax reporting and to the tax credits. There's going to be also a lot of grants and so on available. E-commerce, I know Karen and I had a very good conversation about this. The bookkeeping, my goodness, I admire those people who tackle e-commerce. It is not an easy place to be in, and sometimes the difficulty is not so much the access to information, it's knowing what information you need, which means knowing what the entrepreneur is doing.
Which
The
makes
tax,
it fun.
which makes it fun. Yeah. Karen, I'm just curious, have you experienced any kind of obscure platforms? It's like, okay, now we're selling on, I don't know, Cool Stuff Inc. or something. I don't know.
I wouldn't call them obscure particularly, but we've had some tour booking platforms that we've dealt with, quite a few of them. They don't link with anything, so you have to figure out your own methods to automate those. But nothing terribly obscure at this stage. Shopify seems to be the choice.
Yeah, I've seen Shopify being used in retail settings too.
Oh,
where
really?
they no longer
Okay.
have a traditional POS. Everything is done through Shopify. And that could be, you know, your traditional retail business. It could be a bubble tea shop or, you know, a women's clothing store. I've seen it in both those situations. So.
Okay, so entering the market that Square's in right now.
Yeah, and it's really it's interesting because the one company I saw, they were just like, oh, we just know the brand Shopify, so we wanted to use Shopify. The other brand that I know was like, well, we started off doing like small sales on e-commerce, so it made sense to only have one platform. So that's how they do it that way. It's interesting. So you might have to learn Shopify even if you don't want to. Just heads up on that. So where we're really seeing it, we don't specialize in e-commerce. Early on, I wanted to do a lot of e-commerce. I encountered a lot of challenges with the entrepreneurs, so I kind of backed off that category. The story that I told you about the customer, the client who did not register for HST, that's e-commerce, and that's the kind of thing that I really want to get away from, because if they don't, in the end of the day, and I mean, I don't mean to be callous about it, we need to get paid. We need to pay our people. And if, you know, we're going to have any issues there, then we will shy away from it. Where we are seeing it is an additional sales channel. So, you know, somebody who, like, say, for instance, is licensed to sell a product in Canada, they're only selling it in their municipality. By having that online component, now they have the opportunity to go wider and capture more of the Canadian market. Again, with this, you often see people not talking and not registering for the appropriate sales tax, not collecting the appropriate sales tax. So again, if you can have those conversations up front, it's better. So subscription and freemium models. Has anybody worked with anybody with a freemium model? Has anybody done anything like for your business with like a lead magnet? It's like, sign up for our mailing list and get this ebook on something. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So like, I mean, like, think about it. We've all been working with like freemium models, like, you know, I guess like Jotform has a, you know, a free version and then paid versions and Airtables, and all of these different things have, depending on what level. And I've just started with something like that with the like the lead magnets type of thing. We've just launched Bootcamp Academy. And what I'm doing is essentially there's a course, because I want to have valued everything. There's the cost. Then I've got it marked down by 50% to be the sale cost. But really, when we start promoting it out, it's like, here's the freebie code. There's always going to be a freebie code, but we're doing, because there's value. to
Yeah.
that. And that's kind of how we're doing it. So, and it's a 20-minute course on Inbox Zero. Right. So,
Yep. Absolutely. When I first started, we did a lead magnet about, and it was a great little ebook that I'd like to revitalize when I get the time. Isn't that the operable question always, when I get the time? That was considerations for new immigrants to Canada. And it was just little things like, where to go to get a health card, how to get your SIN number, what do you have to keep track of for your taxes? And, what are RSPs? What are TFSAs? These kind of different, helping them to go navigate some different platforms. There's a lot of dishonesty out there in the realms of immigration and in the realm of debt, where people are actually charging significant amounts for something that should cost nothing, right? Like, for instance, like, for $1,500, I'll help you get your health card. Well, I mean, health card, we all know that's not something that you should be paying a consultant to help with, right? Another is very common is, for this small fee, we'll arrange a meeting with this larger bankruptcy trustee firm that would have done the meeting for free. And now this person has spent money that they don't have to make an appointment with, a firm that would have done their initial appointment for free anyway. So some of these things are things to keep aware of. I don't like them, but they do happen. There are definitely tax credit and grant opportunities in this realm, mainly because of the software component and the possibility of, coming up with shred or doing something that supports a specific at-risk demographic of the community. There's a lot of opportunities for that. All right, so sustainability and clean tech, a lot of tax credit and grant opportunities in this realm. It can be very simple, very complicated. So one thing, I'm going to geek out here for a minute. Please excuse me. Does anybody know the show Star Trek Discovery? All right. So the chief engineer in Star Trek Discovery is Paul Stamets. Paul Stamets is a real person. Paul Stamets is one of the world's foremost researchers about fungus. And his first TED Talk was the TED Talk that sucked me into TED Talks. And it was not very good. And I didn't realize until seeing the Magic Fungi thing on Netflix that he actually had a speech impediment. So it was very difficult for him to present. So taking that with a grain of salt was interesting. But he now employs over 100 people. And he made his big money from a patent that uses a fungus to exterminate and prevent the reoccurrence of termite infestations. So that's something that's really like, wait, what? This is just, you figured out how to take this one thing, put it here so that the termites would take it back to the nest, kill everything, and then leave the residue so no new termites come in. And that's it's really simple. Another one that they did was using bags, like the cheesecloth style bags, off the runoff ditches from farms to help remove E. coli from the runoff. So there's some really interesting things there. And then we hear about these companies I think it was in Sweden, where they've positioned a carbon capture facility directly next to a polluter, and they've managed to actually just start pulling carbon out of the air, just cleaning the air with carbon. So that's something on the much more advanced side. There's going to be carbon tax credit swapping programs. Politics aside, it's something that's going to exist. The entire world is moving in that direction, and that's part of the reason sometimes things are significantly more expensive than we think they ought to be. So keep an eye on legislation and trends for opportunities if this is a realm that you want to get into. I think it's fascinating, but we're more of a generalist firm, so it's not something that we've gone too deep on. Any stories, questions, comments? Let's try not to get too political about it, but anything about any of these items?
Lots of curiosity.
Oh yeah, like for instance?
Fascinates me.
Oh, absolutely. I sometimes wish I had like a shorter work week, and I'm working towards it, but I wish I had a shorter work week so I could just spend a day just learning. You know what I mean? I'm going to spend 6 hours a week just like, learning about stuff, reading articles. I mean, we try to do it now, but our days are so, I don't know. I'm speaking for myself. My day is sometimes so like so many switching tasks that it's hard to really absorb and give things the appreciation that they deserve. So,
Thank you for the tip on Paul Stamets on TED Talks.
yeah, no problem. It just cracks me up. Like I had no idea it was the same guy. And I was like, wait a minute, what? And they literally named the character off of him, and traveling the mycelial network and things like that. You might have seen The Last of Us is new. That's coming
It
out
was
about.
filmed right here. We saw it being filmed.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
So that's based on a video game where zombies are a result of a fungal infestation. So that's kind of an interesting thing. But there are, the avatar, the whole idea of trees talking together underground and stuff. These things, there is some scientific evidence to it. It's infancy, and sci-fi takes it to the next level, but it's interesting what we're learning every day.
Life is a blast.
And it happens fast. So some key considerations just in general working with businesses of the future: tax credit and grant opportunities. Shred can be completely hidden. You could be doing something that's shred eligible, but because you're not thinking of it in those terms, you're not applying for the credit. You're using offshore employees to get the work done and not qualifying for the credit, things like that. I mean, grants, there are so many grants out there, nobody can know them all. And there are opportunities right now. CDAP is a big one, the Canadian Digital Adoption Program, that's available for your customers out there. The job grants, those are always useful to help get people trained up and updated. So there's just some things to think about. So bookkeeping needs to support reporting. Different organizations are going to want to know about different things. So sustainability, equity, diversity, and inclusiveness, and stakeholder impact reporting. I expect that we're going to see things like this down the road. Traditionally, these would go to some kind of internal financial analyst or something like that. But I think there's going to be the opportunity for people like us to step in and assist with that work. So it's something that's interesting. The tax credit claims and the grant revenue recognition needs to be supported by bookkeeping appropriately. Quite often we'll find out that somebody did grants and was just booked into sales, things along those lines, which of course could result in a GST or HST audit if you filed with that top line thing. Anyway, I could keep going on that, but I won't. Covenant reporting, this is something that's often missed, and that's an easy add-on for us. Sometimes the entrepreneurs don't even know they have covenants. So it is important, though it can be frustrating, it is important that as their support, we request and we get access and we review things like loan agreements, grant funding agreements. Because, for instance, it's not very helpful if you go and you do the tax for the customer and you prepare some basic financial statements, but they needed audited financial statements, or they had to have a current ratio of X, or they had to reflect, do some kind of specific reporting for how the money was spent in conjunction with which activities. So does anybody work with daycares in Canada? Oh, we're the only one. Okay. Well, the $10 a day childcare is coming into effect. It is not a slow process. It's going to be over the course of years, but the reporting requirements are heavy. These people are going to need support. These businesses are going to need support, and it is highly specialized. So it is a realm where it could be totally niched. The key is to make sure, again, that the customer can afford the services. Now, luckily, a lot of these grants that are coming down include an increase specifically for accounting, bookkeeping, and auditing. So that's really nice to see. And a lot of the time you can still get the audit work done relatively inexpensively for an audit, just because it's very specialized, very specific. And it's my understanding is if your books and records are good, it's not too bad. Another thing that I predict we're going to see is more focus on stakeholder value over shareholder value. This is something that's come into conflict a lot and creates a lot of protest movements and different things like that. But stakeholders are more than just the ownership of the company, just the shareholders, right? The team, their stakeholders, the clients, their stakeholders, the community, their stakeholders. So these are things that people might want to report on in the future, but maybe they're not now. This is just directions I see things going. Does anybody have any clients who do anything in these realms that they'd like to share a story or something that, it was tough to figure out how to do EDI reporting for XYZ organization? Okay. One thing that I'm starting to do, and I haven't fully done it, is sustainability and EDI reporting and impact reporting for CATA. It's very much at the playground stage of things, but what I would like to see is how many jobs did we support? How much revenue did we support? How much profit, how much owner's compensation did we support? What is our environmental footprint? What is our carbon footprint out there? What is our EDI behavior? How are we in that realm? And I mean, everybody has to decide what's right for their company. And I mean, sometimes these things, it's just a fact of life. They have to take second fiddle to getting the job done. So another just comment, be prepared, stay up to date with the trends in legislation. Try to be educated on grant and tax opportunities, expand your network and know who to speak with. One company that we follow, it's RDP, and I get their newsletter regularly, and I am very aggressive on the unsubscribe button, and I still get their newsletter. Startup Canada is another one that we follow that often has some interesting information about grant opportunities, other loan opportunities, and BDC is another one that I follow as well. Learn how to use the supporting technology. Cloud bookkeeping and accounting software was very highly ranked, and we'll talk about what I mean by highly ranked down the road. And the basic know-how of how to use technology is a must. If you're doing things by pen and paper, you need to upgrade. I mean, I don't think anybody on this call is that way, but I'm sure we've seen some customers like that. And we've also seen some other firms like that. And of course, niching is more impactful than ever. The more narrow you can go, the more focused you can be on a particular type of business, the better impact you can have in a broader term. So poll question number 2. What do we need to consider for businesses of the future? Reporting needs, inventory tracking, blockchain bookkeeping, or A&B or A&C?
All right, we'll do a 5-second countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. End the poll and share the results.
All right, so I really think I gave bad answers here. I think it's really all of them, because inventory tracking is becoming more and more important, especially with drop shipping. But the fundamentals haven't changed. It's the location that's really changed in that realm, which is why I didn't include that as my right answer. Really, I mean, these are often subjective. Just before I continue, Kathy, you mentioned Power Automate. I wasn't paying attention to the chat at that time. What was it that in relation to?
Instead of Zapier.
Oh, instead of Zapier. Yeah, I mean, that's a great no-code tool. I have not used Power Automate. We should powwow on that.
Like a dream.
Works like a dream. Good to know. Good to know. All right. So in summary, businesses of the future are those from industries that are rapidly changing or otherwise in their infancy. They may be in any industry, but they're all innovative early adopters of tech advancements. They have more reporting and tax requirements, and we need to always be learning. So the future belongs to those who prepared for it today. Malcolm X. I found this quote and I was like, that's a good quote. Let's use that quote. So something that I wanted to share with you. The outlines to this presentation were from ChatGPT. Has anyone used ChatGPT? Yeah. It's pretty bonkers what it can do, but you have to take it with a grain of salt. So what the two questions I asked is, what are the businesses, what are things bookkeepers and accountants need to consider for businesses of the future? And the other was, how should they prepare? So the number 2 hit on how they should prepare was cloud bookkeeping and technology software. I think that's really skewed by the amount of advertising, commentary, articles, and so on that are out there from people like us, people like Intuit, people like Xero, people like Sage. That there's a lot of that information out there, which is why I think it got ranked number 2. Another thing that barely got ranked in one of them and did not get ranked at all, and as a result, we didn't talk about it at all, is freelancers, gig economy, and remote workforce. So there's a whole other series of considerations. In Canada, you have T2200 forms that might need to be prepared for a remote workforce. You definitely, God knows, vehicle expenses, standby charges, those kind of things are something that are going to become more and more complicated. And well, they're not going to become more complicated, but they're going to become more prevalent. And I think that my big lesson is, yes, this saved me time using ChatGPT, but it's definitely not a replacement for independent human thought. I think it was really the data that it feeds off of is skewed, which results in skewed output. And it takes us all the way back to the fundamentals of bookkeeping, right? Garbage in, garbage out. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this develops, but I had to, it's so neat. So that's it for today. Any questions, comments? Does anybody have any stories they'd like to share? Anything exciting that they've seen? Does anybody use ChatGPT?
Yeah, I went in and Jan and I were talking about that actually on Friday. When we were on there, I was using it my presentation for CPB Canada, or sorry, my submission for the presentation. I'm not that good with more. I have to be really creative, but to bring things down into 2 sentences, anybody that knows me knows I talk a lot, can't bring it down to a few sentences. And that's why I was saying I had to use that to pull out some ideas. And I'm sitting there writing, okay, we put in, what an accountant, might do about this, and what Norm might say, Norm from Cheers, and this and that, all these other different things to be able to really get my creative juices flowing to come up with those few sentences. The one thing that I do, we talked about this yesterday, Jonathan, the one thing that I do caution people on is it is a research tool. It is like Encyclopedia Britannica. It is like Wikipedia. We cannot copy. You can use it for research. It says that's what it is. If you take something word for word and don't use it to get ideas and use your own creativeness, that is actual copyright infringement, even or plagiarism. Sorry, plagiarism, not necessarily copyright infringement, plagiarism. And using AI, there's a lot of the smart tools such as emails and websites and all of this that actually are looking and for anything that looks like it might be directly out of ChatGPT and blocking it because they don't want somebody to go in there, get ChatGPT to create a whole bunch of blogs and put it out, because now that takes away from the human element and it is plagiarism. So I just caution people, be aware it is a research tool. I use it for creativeness to really get my things going. And when I'm writing blogs, I either use other blogs or I'll start to type something in, and I usually put something in that I feel the opposite of, because when I feel the opposite, I get even more fired up, and then I go in and do like a contradictory type of thing. But that's the only thing I want to caution, but it's really cool. And you can type into it, you can say, okay, rephrase that, but make it funny. And it'll actually rephrase it and make it funny. And it's very cool. So
Yeah,
if you haven't played, play.
It's pretty neat what it can do. Jan, I think I don't know if you're with me on the Tuesday for the CPB regional networking meetup. I know you were there, but I don't know and if we were talking about it. But Fod from Xero, his brother got ChatGPT to produce code to program all the movements of chess, and then I retested that on Friday night, and we got to give the code for how a rook moves in chess. So you can get different things like that. I got an example of a Bitcoin hash out of it just to show somebody what a hash looked like because they had a question about it. But it's pretty amazing. Write me a play, tell me a joke. Like there's so many things it can do. But it does create an interesting situation of a feedback loop, right? So since I took information from Chat GPT, I use it as a theme, as an outline of what was going to be discussed today. That's going to then feed back and reinforce that idea. So it's something we have to be very cognizant of, and that, can't always trust the robots at face value. The data might be skewed, the underlying information could be flawed. And I think that's something where a lot of companies working in the AI space, it's going to be one of the toughest hurdles to overcome, even in bookkeeping, even in QBO, because Lord knows there's almost an infinite number of ways to set up charts of accounts. And we know that not every bookkeeper processes things appropriately and above board. So these are things to keep in mind when you're using these tools as well. All right, well, I think that summarizes everything. Thank you for coming. I hope everybody found this valuable. No more questions, comments? All right. We are looking for ideas for future webinars. I did put a post up in the Bookkeepers Corner group, got some interesting feedback. One of them I think is definitely important to talk about, but we'll take some time to prepare. And then we're just, if there's any ideas, please feel free to share them with us.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everyone.
All right. Thanks. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.